It's a marshmallow world in the winter when the snow comes to cover the ground. For decades, Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra stood at the center of American cool. Two legends who laughed together, ruled Las Vegas, and defined an era of effortless swagger. To the public, their bond seemed unbreakable, almost brotherly. But behind the bright lights, something went terribly wrong. Almost overnight, Dean Martin quietly walked away. He cut ties with Frank Sinatra completely. No press conferences, no public fallout, no explanations. He simply erased Frank from his personal world. Fans were left confused. Rumors spread. The truth stayed buried for years. So what could be so painful, so personal, that it shattered one of the greatest friendships in entertainment history? Dean Martin was born Dino Paul Crocetti on June 7, 1917, in Steubenville, Ohio. His beginnings were anything but glamorous. The son of Italian immigrants, he grew up poor, spoke little English, and learned early how to survive. As a teenager, he boxed bare-knuckle under the name Kid Crochet, fighting without proper gear because he couldn't afford it. He carried the scars for life, a broken nose, split lips, and a toughness that never left him. Music became his escape. Singing under the name Dino Martini, he worked small clubs until a band leader suggested something simple: change the name. With that quiet shift, Dean Martin was born. By the early 1940s, Dean was grinding through New York nightclubs, chasing a break that never quite arrived. Then, in 1944, fate showed up disguised as chaos. While performing at a club in Atlantic City, Dean met an unpredictable young comic named Jerry Lewis. Their chemistry was instant but completely unplanned. When they officially debuted as a duo in 1946, the audience hated it, until they abandoned structure and trusted instinct. Dean sang smooth and calm. Jerry exploded into wild, reckless comedy. The room erupted. Martin and Lewis became unstoppable. Radio, film, television. They changed comedy forever. But beneath the success, tension grew. Dean felt trapped as the straight man, while Jerry soaked up the spotlight. After 10 years, the partnership collapsed. When it ended in 1956, many assumed Dean Martin had already lived his best chapter. They were wrong. Freed from the duo, Dean Martin finally became himself. His solo career soared. His voice grew warmer, smoother, and more confident with age. And standing beside him now was Frank Sinatra. Though they had crossed paths before, their true bond formed in the late 1950s. Along with Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Lawford, and Joey Bishop, they became known as the Rat Pack. On stage at the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas, nothing was scripted. Songs blended into jokes. Insults flew like affection. The audience didn't just watch, they felt invited into the madness. Behind the swagger was real loyalty. Dean and Frank refused to perform at segregated venues, quietly drawing lines others wouldn't. To the world, they were kings. But Dean Martin was never just the carefree rogue he played. Beneath the tuxedo lived a deeply private man whose true center was family. Of his 8 children, none mattered more to him than his son, Dean Paul Dino Martin. Dino had talent and drive. He sang, acted, competed as a professional tennis player, and then surprised everyone by choosing a path far removed from Hollywood. He became a fighter pilot with the California Air National Guard. On March 21, 1986, Dino's jet vanished during a routine training flight over California's desert. The search was massive. Aircraft combed the sky. Teams scoured rugged terrain. Even President Ronald Reagan ordered military resources to assist. Frank Sinatra stood beside Dean, knowing the pain all too well. Years earlier, Sinatra's own mother had died in a plane crash in those same mountains. 3 days later, the wreckage was found on San Gorgonio Mountain. There were no survivors. Dino was 35. Something inside Dean Martin shattered. The laughter disappeared. The sparkle dimmed. Friends saw it instantly. Sinatra believed work might save him and invited Dean to join a reunion tour. It only made things worse. On stage, Dean forgot lyrics, slurred jokes, and looked exposed rather than charming. One night, after a disastrous performance, Dean simply walked away and flew home. He was done pretending. But the fracture between Dean and Frank hadn't started there. It had begun years earlier, on June 7, 1966, Dean's 49th birthday. The celebration took place at the Polo Lounge in the Beverly Hills Hotel. Drinks flowed. Laughter grew louder. Nearby sat Frederick Weissman, a wealthy businessman enjoying a quiet evening. After enduring the noise, he asked the group to lower their voices. What happened next has never been fully agreed upon. Words were exchanged. Tempers flared. Sinatra reportedly lost control. Chaos erupted. When it ended, Weissman lay unconscious with a fractured skull. Sinatra was rushed out before police arrived. Though Weissman survived and no charges were filed, the damage was done. For Dean Martin, that night crystallized a painful truth. He was gentle off-stage, devoted to family, uncomfortable with confrontation. Sinatra lived on the edge, fueled by impulse and chaos. That birthday night represented everything Dean no longer wanted in his life. Afterward, the calls stopped being returned. Invitations were ignored. The friendship didn't explode, it faded. Quietly, permanently. Dean Martin never spoke publicly about the break. He didn't need to. Sometimes legends walk away not because the bond wasn't real, but because the cost of staying becomes too high.